we are trying to give a little different solution to the market, saying that hey, as a individual, you don't have to spend money from your pocket to reduce your carbon footprint. We will enable you with the solution, with the incentive. You just have to take them,
Mm,
and we also give you the token which has a certain value, right?
mm,
This is not a token which is just created out of thin air.
mm.
This is a token which is backed by a reduction that kind of gets verified as well.
So, hi, Jasveen.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
so much for your time, and thank you for willing to do this podcast with me to share about your work and your interest on climate change. Would you mind to introduce about yourself, your work, and what you do first?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it's great. Like I said, prior to when we started recording, it's great to see the interest from the community, the ecosystem. It's also great to have the interest from people who are young, who are millennials like you, who are just trying to kind of because there are a million things that are usually on top of your mind, and it is great that climate change is one of them. So so I think just to introduce myself, I'm an engineering graduate. I passed out in the year 2004 with electronics engineering. And then, if I have to talk about my professional career, I have been with Fidelity Investments for a very long time in India, wherein I played different roles, starting from development to business analyst to the project manager, and then to the product management, and finally I settled into the space of being a product manager. I was managing one of the proprietary financial applications for them. And then I have also been employed with Bosch, wherein I was the senior product manager, wherein we built the one of the provenance Bosch blockchain platform literally from the scratch. I was also responsible for creating a sustainability application called AutoTrace, from the scratch again. There was also one of the circularity and sustainability project that I was leading while I was at Bosch. And I would say it was around that time wherein when I started to do a lot of the primary research and then the secondary research to build the product that we were building, and also to lead the project that we were trying to do with one of the leading OEM&As at that time. The my interest in sustainability kind of picked up, and this is around 2019 or so, if I have to, if I remember. And it was during that time when when I was, I was primarily researching about the circular economy and so on. And I could see, I think from 2019 to 2021, I could see a lot of interest. There was a lot of interest from the investment community. There was a lot of interest from the consumer side. There was a lot of interest from the ecosystem, I would say, as a
Mm,
whole. And I could see that a lot of focus uh, was also coming from the nations, from the governments, and so on.
mm,
And that's where and I also experienced few personal, I would say, experiences with climate change and the implications of the climate change so directly, that I kind of reflected that it is high time that everybody needs to make a conscious effort to, if they're not in a position to act on it, by being directly employed with respect to initiatives about climate change. There are still initiatives, actions that anybody can do at their own level, where you are employed at, the kind of the kind of community you represent, because it's so, I think I would say 5 years back, or rather 7 or 8 years back, it was a distraction, right? I mean,
mm,
it used to be there and we used to hear about it, and then suddenly one thing used to come, and then people used to continue to lead their regular lives and so on. And there
Mm.
was a lot of focus, I would say, at that point in time about globalization, about growth, about different markets, and so on. And I would say specifically in the last 2 to 3 years, things have changed because it's no longer a news that you would see. In a different geography. And
Mm.
you will, it's not like, so if I'm in US, I'm hearing something about India, and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't bother me, it is not affecting me. But in the last year specifically, there have been changes that has happened literally in
Mm.
every continent. You talk about the recent floods that came in Australia. You talk about the recent heat wave that's going on right now in India. I was speaking to my father yesterday, and he's like, it's really bad. It's really really
Mm.
bad. And to top it, there are extremely vulnerable uh, population categories who are impacted by this.
Mm.
Think about a labor who is in their mud home, and they do not have access to a centralized air conditioner. How would they sustain this kind of a change?
Mm.
um, so I think there are certain population categories who are extremely vulnerable to climate change. Women is one of them. People who are disabled is one of them. Children is one of the category. People who have the certain health conditions is one of them. People who are in with the elderly population is one of them. So literally, if you kind of count it, it kind of covers a lot of our population. And I'm not just talking about one geography. I'm talking about the world population as a whole. And it's not that I'm saying it. I'm saying people are vulnerable.
Mm.
It's the report from the IPCC who has kind of called out these categories of population who are vulnerable. If you look at the IPCC latest report that came out, I think just before, or I think it was around the time the Ukraine war started. Unfortunately, it did not get a lot of media attention because of the action that was going on in a certain geography. And climate change, really, what it is basically we trying to contain the temperature within the 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then there are different, I would say, situations that they have carved out saying, if we go, say, from 1.5 to 2 degree, what happens? If we go from 2 to 3, what happens? If so, I think, and then they have modeled it so much that you can actually understand in which geography, under which situation, what kind of impact you will see. So there are geographies which will see an impact of droughts. There are geographies which will see an impact of floods. There
Mm.
are geographies which will see an impact of limited access to resources such as food and so on. So I think it's just so glaring in our face
Mm.
that you cannot ignore it. I think at
Oh,
this point in time, you
exactly.
cannot just kind of say that, oh, just let me just continue to focus on what I'm doing and not pay attention. We are not at that point, honestly. So I think it is because of all these changes and all these events that happen, which is why I felt I should do my bit, and that's why I started Clime DAO, because it was also during one of the research that I was doing while I was employed in my last organization, wherein I felt consumers, they have individuals, households, consumers, they have a lot to contribute.
Mm.
They are responsible for a lot of emissions. There's a lot of action that they can take.
Mm.
So, and this is one segment that has not got its due of, I would say, solutions, incentives, and encouragement or motivation to basically do their bit.
Mm.
And me sitting in my home, I will just say, oh, why do I bother switching off the light? Why do I bother getting the electric car? Why do I bother? I mean, what would happen if I do it? So that's the kind of encouragement or enablement, empowerment that we want to give.
Mm.
And I will also go on. I think on record to say that, in my view, I am ready to to give whatever it takes. If it and we are trying different options, we are trying
Mm,
different solutions with the kind of initiative that I have at hand. I'm
mm,
also ready to pivot to a certain degrees, and but I think the it's it's my calling, I would say, to at least see the impact and to be able to make people realize and then take an impact or take an action. uh,
mm,
it and the impact and the action can be at an individual level, but
mm,
it's the one plus one plus one, and then the addition continues because there are I think 7 billion people on Earth,
mm,
and everybody is responsible for a certain carbon footprint, certain
mm.
emissions, and if
So,
everybody is doing something, definitely there should be a change.
that's pretty amazing, pretty sum up of what is happening and what may happen in the future. So, here is like one question which I really want to understand. You said sometimes this climate change doesn't get much media attention, and sometimes you also say that these people who are in their household, the individuals, we can all contribute in certain ways, in certain things. But at the same time, what narrative are we bringing to the young people, or what narrative about climate change are we communicating or are we broadcasting? Because in one way, I feel like if we talk about media, are do the media communicating or narrating about the climate change in the right way that enable, that helps, or that encourage the young people like me or the young people, many people out there to do something for climate change? What will you? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think I would say what I've also noticed a change rather in some of the narratives that are now coming in from different media companies and different journalists out there. um, I think one of the narrative that I had heard, I would say, some time back,
Mm,
was about that this whole climate change basically is an after effect because of certain number of companies, and those I don't want to take the
mm,
name of the companies, but the number is under 10. So I think one of the narrative is that around 10 companies are responsible for the emissions that you see now.
mm,
So after the post industrial which was I think around 1970, the kind of industrialization that we have seen, the kind of practices that we have seen, industrialization practices, which has led to this kind of a mess we are in right now. So one narrative is, and then of course it also goes to say that there are certain nations, certain developed nations, who have created this mess. And then, why don't we ask these people who are responsible to kind of, fix everything, fix this? So this was the kind of narrative that was going on, which is more of, just trying to identify who has basically, whoever has created the problem should own it up and then solve it and so on. But now the narrative that we see now is that we cannot look at, one versus the other. So the narrative has certainly changed, I would say,
mm,
wherein we are now talking about an integrated approach. We are now talking about the approach with respect to wherein the community is coming up. I've also seen narratives, and in fact, a lot of communication from the organization. So there are a lot of organizations who are formed and who are basically talking about and educating people about the awareness about climate change.
mm,
Certain initiatives that I would like to kind of talk about. Clever Carbon is one of them. They're very active in the European, in fact, in UK, they started from there. And there's a lot of good work that they have done with respect to educating young people.
mm,
If you happen to just go out to their website, it's not a boring stuff. I think one thing that we have to change, and that's what we are also trying to kind of see how do we get our hands around it, is we need to stop pretending or making climate change as one boring thing, and we kind of continue to talk about the end of the world kind of a messaging, or there's a apocalypse coming, or there is this, sort of we are dying. And I think so there's a lot of negativity with respect to the kind of narratives that we see out there and we have seen
Mm.
out there. And now the kind of narrative is changing about a lot of positivity with respect to saying, there is around 8 years to go, and then the way we are trying to. So we are talking about, now we are talking about certain solutions that we can take. There are, rewiring America, I guess is the name of the NGO, which kind of talks about, what kind of actions you can take in your household. There are, organizations such as Climate Goal Plan, I guess, um, which so there are a lot of organizations who are kind of spreading the message. In fact, on Twitter, I see a lot of individuals, a lot of youth coming in, and talking about the climate change and what they are doing in
Mm.
this. So there is certainly a narrative change, but I would say there's a lot that still can be done,
Mm.
wherein we try to infuse certain positivity with respect to the action somebody can take. And also, we need to make it a little, I think, cool that, climate change and working towards climate change is cool. It's not,
Mm.
that you think about maybe let's not try to make it very boring, because otherwise, youth and these are the people, imagine if we are talking about, we scientists say that we have 8 years to turn around. So if you are, I think, 20 right now,
Mm.
and by the time people continue to say that, the worst will come when we are, and if the climate change, we are not able to contain it below
Mm.
1.5 degree, there will be a lot of extreme events and so on around 2040 or 2045 and so on. So I think about these people who are 20 right now,
Mm.
when they are 40 or 45, what kind of earth they would be living in. Would they be thinking about their careers, or would they be thinking about migration, forceful migration, because there was an event that has happened in their area which has forced them to move to a new place, which means they have to find a new job, they have to move their family, because that area is no longer livable because
Mm.
of extreme heat or whatever, right?
Mm.
So it's that kind of messaging that we, and so which means it's the youth who really needs to kind of, pick it up and drive it home, the action, the messaging, and, take it upon themselves, that because they are the ones who will be living this, they are the
Exactly.
ones who will be facing it.
Mm. Mm.
Um so I think, I think, just to cut it short, I think it's we have seen a change in the narrative, but I think we just need to continue. There's a lot of opportunity basically to still continue to change the narrative.
Mm. Wonderful, wonderful. I have one question. Like you mentioned that there are few companies that are responsible for most of the climate change impact that is happening today.
Mhm.
So we don't want to talk about those companies, but I also want to talk about Tesla, like the Elon Musk Tesla, because what I see is they are in terms of climate change, they are really doing a lot of things in terms of bringing solar city, in terms of making electric car, and also apart from Tesla, I also want to talk about your company. What is your company contributing to climate change?
Sure. Yeah, Tesla is great. I mean, kudos to Elon Musk, to basically who has kind of, who has basically given a solution to the mass public.
Mm.
Um, so and then delivering it in a record time, because I would say at the time when he started to pursue this effort,
Mm.
I don't think it was easy for him.
Mm.
We are talking about, like, I think, if I'm not wrong, we are talking about maybe a decade back. I am not
Yes.
100% right on the
More
dates,
than a
maybe.
decade back, yes.
Yeah, so I think about that. Climate change at that point was not a priority. Electric cars at that point was not a priority. So I think everything about it, thinking about and entering a domain which was not his forte,
Mm.
which is basically automobile, right? And then At that point in time, in the US, the automobile industry is of course dominated, and there are these three giant companies, uh, wherein there's a lot of I would say the market adoption and there's a lot of market that is basically captured by the three mega companies,
Mm.
which means they have a lot of talent, they have a lot of expertise, they have a lot of they have done the business, so they know how to do it. So right, so there's a lot of things that are going well for them, and then here is this new guy who comes in. So I don't know how he managed to pull it together, but what I see is that you have a product which works, which delivers what you're supposed to deliver.
Mm.
I have seen, in fact, some of my cousins have bought Tesla and they are very happy about it. It is expensive. Of course, there are upfront costs. But I think if you look at the impact that you're able to create
Mm.
because you bought a Tesla, the kind of, and not just, I mean, from a emotional and a from environment point of view, even from a cost saving point of view, right? It is the cost, there is a you could try to even out the cost as the longer you keep the vehicle and so on. So I think and then he also opened, I think recently, not recently, maybe 1 or 2 years back, he also opened the patents, which means he's saying to the world, saying, I have done it, hey car company, why don't you do it as well? Which
Mm.
means he knows that the more open the innovation is, the larger the adoption will be, because believe it or not, the price of a EV and the price of a regular IC car, petrol or diesel car, that there is a price difference, right? Which we
Mm.
call as a green premium, which means you have to pay extra to, or you have to pay more to get a electric or a hybrid car
Mm.
versus a diesel or a petrol, right? So he's basically trying to bring the scale to this whole segment. He's so the economies are so, and he knows that if the innovation is I mean, if the channel of innovation is open, the the economy of scale will work to a larger degree, which means the price of a EV will drop. And that's what they say, that I think one in seven cars that are being sold is an electric car. There was, I think, if I'm not wrong, there was over 1 million cars that were sold last year. I may be wrong with the numbers, but which means there's a lot of production that's going on. There's a lot of adoption that we see. Um, so I think so that's going great. There
Mm.
are other companies as well, in the energy segment, uh, who are also trying. Like, I think if we talk about the Google Nest, Ecobee, Honeywell thermostats. There are there are startups which are like, I think Sunrun is one of them, which started with they also started with the consumer section, wherein they are trying to give people the the uh, solar roof and so on. So I think there's a lot of good work, I would say, that has happened, and these
Mm.
companies are basically targeting the consumers, because
Mm.
I believe they know that it is the consumers who are basically the linchpin of turning this around,
Mm.
right? So so we are, I think we target the consumers as well,
Okay.
because when I was, and again, going back to my introduction where I mentioned that, I was working in the enterprise side of it, where we were trying to create a product which kind of increases the circularity and so on. And I was working in the enterprise side of things. And I realized again that consumers are one big piece of this whole puzzle.
Mm.
And if you talk about any product that is out there, if you talk about, say, automobile, if you have a car, if you have say a toaster, if you have how you cook, right, on
Mm.
which is what do you use for cooking, is it electric or gas, and so on. So and I think every product that is manufactured has a emission number. So
Mm.
I think there are emissions which are produced during the manufacturing. There are emissions that are produced during the transport. There are emissions that are produced during the use of the product, and then there are emissions that are produced during the after use, like how you dispose it and so on, right? So you basically are looking at four categories of emission production, and the third category, which is the use of the product, for a lot of customer products that they use, is very high, and the number of emissions that are produced during that point in time when you're using the product is also very high. And this is what the consumers can basically control, right? So, and we saw that since we are talking about the four segments, a lot of focus I saw was in the first, second, and the last segment, right? Where we are talking about, we are trying to ask the companies to basically reduce the carbon emission. There's a lot of scrutiny, there's a lot of focus with respect to the ESG reporting, and all rightly so, right? I mean, we want to make sure the products are manufactured, produced, delivered, and disposed based on a certain process, sustainability process, and companies continue to do their bit to be carbon neutral and to make sure their products are carbon neutral. But the third piece, which is the piece wherein the production of the emissions are the most, uh, there is, I think, very limited solutions available for the consumers to basically, have a handle on, and that's where Clime DAO comes in. So Clime DAO is basically, we are on a mission to enable millions of individuals, consumers, and households to basically know the impact that they have on the climate, and we measure it with the carbon footprint. And once you know the impact that you have on this planet, we empower you with the actions that you take with respect to reducing your impact. And there's a lot of enablement with respect to, um, you know, um, uh, taking climate positive actions. Once these climate actions have been taken, uh, there's a verification process that comes in, and then once the verification happens, we basically reward you with a CLI token, which is basically a digital native token from the Clime DAO side. Now, I think one may ask that, why are we doing all this? So, I think we are trying to basically target the demand side actions from the consumers, right? Uh, Wherein the kind of action we see right now, uh, there are a lot of, I would say, factors that comes in when somebody is trying to take a climate positive action. There's a green premium cost, like I just told you. The products which are good for the environment, they are costly. There is a cost differential. I feel like, I'm paying things from my pocket, but I don't see I'm not able to put the maths around it, right? And everybody is earning, and they are going, they want to make sure the hard earned money that they have kind of it's put to good use, and while making sure it doesn't leave a dent in the pocket, right? So there are a lot of friction points that a consumer kind of goes through um, when they're trying to take a climate positive action. And that's where we are trying to basically kind of come in as well. So and then the second aspect of it is, I may have taken the climate positive action, but I don't get some sort of, like a pat on the back. I don't feel special about it. Nobody's making me feel special about it. Okay, well, you have done something. I got a refrigerator, which is maybe a 5-star efficiency rated. I had paid 10,000 extra for it, but guess what? Nobody appreciates that. So I think we are trying to tackle these two problems. One is to address the cost differential. Second is to basically make you feel special about it, to
in the way
let you
of
know that
in the way of incentivizing them.
yes, exactly. So we have an incentive hub, which is one part of the solution, wherein we partner with the green champions. We are calling them green champions, but these are basically sustainable brands. Now, these sustainable brands offer incentive, which reduces the cost differential. So, if if a climate action such as buying a smart thermostat reduces around, say, a certain carbon ton, so reduces my carbon footprint. We are trying to partner with brands who will give you an incentive of a certain dollar, which will reduce your cost differential, right?
Mm.
So you don't feel that bad about, really buying something expensive, and you're able to kind of put the maths together.
Mm.
So one is that wherein we try to, and this incentive, I will, at least in some of the developed nation, exists right now. It's
Mm.
not that we are trying to create out of the box.
Mm.
So I think the novelty is not about that. I think, but we are trying to make the whole process seem very easy
Mm.
at the outset. This
Mm.
process currently is fragmented, is extremely broken. It varies from company to company. It takes a lot of time.
Mm.
So I think we are just trying to streamline that using blockchain and Web3,
Mm.
and to bring a lot of transparency and effectiveness into how this whole works.
Mm.
Second piece is wherein we are trying to incentivize them, reward them for the action that they have taken.
Mm.
Because we are also flipping one of the narrative on its head, which is the carbon offset.
Mm.
So, as an individual, the kind of solutions that exist is that I can buy offset. If I have my carbon footprint of, say, 12 tons and so on, I can bring it down. I can buy offset, and these are the solutions that exist in the market.
Mm.
While what we believe in is that is not a long term game plan. While
Mm.
you may have a certain lifestyle, which means you cannot control some of the carbon footprint, but we still believe there are actions that you can take which will get your carbon footprint down, right? So we are trying to kind of move you towards a long term action, move you towards a low carbon lifestyle, which helps you to live in a more sustainable manner. But
Mm.
having said that, we understand it. You cannot come down to zero carbon footprint. I
Mm.
am not at zero carbon footprint. I
Mm.
try to reduce it in different ways. Like I like we just moved to a new place, and instead of buying new things, I'm just trying to use my Facebook Marketplace and try to get a lot of secondhand stuff and something which is used, which means I'm not trying to buy a lot of stuff.
Mm.
We are trying to also get a car which is hybrid, so which means, so I think you're still trying to take action which is sustainable and is longer term, doesn't
Mm.
leave a dent out of your pocket. You're not paying from your pocket to get your carbon footprint down.
Mm.
While I absolutely respect those solutions, there's novelty in that. We are trying to give a little different solution to the market, saying that, hey, as a individual, you don't have to spend money from your pocket to reduce your carbon footprint. We will enable you with the solution, with the incentive. You just have to take them,
Mm.
and we also give you the token which has a certain value, right?
Mm.
This is not a token which is just created out of thin air.
Mm.
This is a token which is backed by a reduction that kind of gets
Mm.
verified as well.
I want to talk about this token because the way you solve climate change, or the way you are encouraging the young people to pursue for climate change is, hey, come do this. And while you are doing this, we are going to give you something. We are going to give you something in return. At the end of the day, when they do something and actions that solve climate change, it is good for whole humanity. But at the same
Yeah.
time, the immediate incentive that you give, that is through digital tokenizations, that is built through Web3 or say blockchain. So I want to ask how this Web3 and blockchain technology helping you or helping the world solve climate change.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we chose Web3, and not because I had a background in Web3, which is why I did not choose Web3 for the solution that we have. A lot of people have asked me, why blockchain? Why can't you do it via, a regular SaaS solution or via regular Web2? I think the reason we went with Web3, one is to give the give transparency
Mm.
on the how the verification is happening. So
Mm.
what is happening is you're taking an action, you are reducing your carbon footprint. We are using a proprietary algorithm which is inspired by proof of stake to basically verify whether the reduction has happened or not, right? I
Mm,
might say that, yeah, I kind of have taken an action and, there's no way to prove it.
exactly.
Then how do we make sure, so if that kind of a situation happens, the token loses its value. The
Mm,
token has a value because the carbon footprint reduction that has happened, it's not that the reduction has happened, it is also
mm.
verified, right?
So blockchain here in this case, blockchain is a technology, a tool that helps you verify the actions through proof of stake consensus.
Yes. So
Wonderful.
we are using the proof of stake in a nuanced way. That's where we are also, there's a patent that we'll be filing as well on this. In a way, because verification is the whole, I would say, um, it's like the pillar which is holding the our token.
Mm,
The
mm,
token has a value because if somebody can kind of trace the provenance, somebody can really verify that yes, the reduction has happened, that that thing has a value. Because
mm,
what we are basically trying to, in a way, we are also trying to generate the offset. These are basically work tokens, if you will, right?
exactly.
So you come in, you do the work, and that could be, that action can be classified as ambitious action, or like, I think buying a car is ambitious action, right? You don't buy
Mm,
a car every day, but there are still some actions that you can take, like changing your LED bulbs. That's not that difficult.
mm,
It's not as difficult as buying a car. So I think you choose the action that you can out of the list that we have, and
mm,
we will only list the actions that we feel we can verify. But at the same time, we are not saying the other actions are not valid. While all
mm,
the other actions, a simple action such as boiling enough water that you need also reduces a certain emission. You
mm,
only boil the water that you need. You don't boil extra.
uh,
But there's no way for us to verify that. We
exactly.
are only listing the actions that we can verify
Mm,
on via the protocol, because once we know we can verify these actions, and we will be able to comfortably be able to give you this CLI token. So that's where this whole prophecy of this whole solution kind of, and that's where the novelty of the solution is,
mm,
because we enable you to take action, we kind of verify it for you, and once it verifies, we kind of give you that CLI token, which is backed by a verified reduction that has happened. And that token itself can be sold as a carbon offset in different
mm,
markets, either centralized or decentralized.
mm,
And there are also different ways of, we are trying to see how do we, enable the individual to kind of get rewarded suitably. Because I have also been asked a question: what is the value of this CLI token? How much will it be worth? I think it will go through a price discovery. People have to
mm,
discover the price as the CLI token kind of gets generated. And
mm,
it's not that this token can be traded, that one token can be traded again and again. I think we also will have to make sure that there are no further sales that are happening, because we
okay.
will also have to ensure that whatever kind of is sold, we kind of burn it accordingly, and there is no double accounting that kind of comes in when
Mm,
we are talking about these carbon reductions that are happening.
mm. That's wonderful, amazing, noble solutions you are bringing to solve one of the biggest problem that the whole world is facing today. I mean, that's really amazing talking to you, hearing from you. I have one last question.
Sure.
What will be your advice to young people today who want to strive towards sustainable ecosystem, sustainable living, or say, what will be your advice for young people in regards to climate change?
One advice that I will have is, one is be aware. Try to kind of get tuned to what is happening around you, right? I
Mm,
mean, it's like whatever you seek will come seeking for you,
mm,
right? So I think seek for climate, for information about climate change. Read. There is so much material out there
mm,
which kind of tells you, because I think unless you are aware, only then you will kind of take an action, because it's like, unless you know the problem, you will never solve it, right? Because it's not a problem for you. So I think one is realizing that it's not someone else's problem, it is everyone's problem.
Exactly.
If if there's a flood in the area, you will be impacted by it. You are no
Mm.
different. If there's a drought in the area, you will be impacted by it. If there are these certain extreme events that are happening, you will be impacted by it. So I think what's first is to be aware about it. Second, create awareness in your social circles. Create, wherever you are, in your community, in your family, with your friends. Um, Try to understand what kind of viewpoints they have, uh, how far they are with respect to this whole climate change issue, right? Because we have seen that as the generations different between the generations, the understanding of it, there is also some there is a difference between how people understand at different generation level generational levels. Third, I think I would say is, there are very small actions that as young people can do. I mean, you don't need to be a millionaire, you don't have to be earning something. Very small action of yours can help in this whole climate change, such as doing carpooling, using sharing the your commute,
Mm.
opting for maybe electric bike, cycling to, if you want to kind of make a grocery trip, don't take out your car, don't take out your vehicle, go walk. So I think transportation is one of a very big source of emission, and energy is also one of this. I think that I've seen some reports wherein they say transport is the biggest. There I've also seen reports wherein it says energy is like the biggest, depending on the geography you're in. Because in some of these geographies, there's a lot of heating that happens at home, which kind of increases the emissions. Second is, look at the kind of energy requirements you have in your where you are.
Mm.
Do you need that those many appliances? Can you make the next appliance or whatever appliance I mean, because if I have to count, I may have at least a double digit number for the number of appliances I have at home.
Mm.
Everything takes energy. I think if you have your laptop charger just plugged in, you have not turned the switch on, that itself is taking emissions.
Mm.
So I think very, very simple actions that you can take can help you, kind of contribute to the bit. Third is subscribe to Clime DAO. I mean, I think we are incentivizing you. So
Wonderful.
come to us, and we will reward you
Mm.
with the action. I mean, we
Mm.
will reward you with the CLIA token once it is verified. Seek these organizations. There's a lot of, I would say, um, join spaces like Twitter, join spaces like LinkedIn. There are a lot of groups, because what can also happen is you may feel, there's this term that people use these days, climate anxiety, like, right?
Mm.
Sometimes you just feel, oh my god, what's going to happen after 10 years? Why? I think you can get into that kind of so I think seek out spaces, seek out communities which kind of you wherein they are at the same level as you are, and
Mm.
then it kind of also helps, so which means you have a sense of belongingness, you also have a sense of purpose of what you're trying to do. And I think things will go more and more from here, is what I can kind of point out.
Mm.
And in the next, I would say, at least 2 to 3 years, you will see a lot of investments, a lot of actions around it. Environmental, you will see a lot of teenagers opting in to go into the sustainability studies. There are a lot of, I think, if you have to look, a lot of people are taking climate environment as one of their majors, one of the fields they want to go in, which was not the case. I mean, when I was graduating, I did not even, I think I'd never even thought this was a field I can kind of study in,
Mm.
right? So a lot of people are trying to look for sustainability related jobs, either tech or non-tech.
Mm-hmm.
These can be again paying or non-paying. You can volunteer for a lot of these things as well. There are DAOs. If you have to talk about Web3, there are DAOs. There are these projects that you can kind of sign up for, which will kind of wherein you kind of are helping them to kind of join the mission towards climate change. So I
Mm-hmm.
think at this point in time, I would say youth are the ones who will be directly impacted by it. I'm not smiling or grinning or being sarcastic about it. I'm just saying that this is a segment who has to realize and take the most action, right?
Exactly.
Um, so I think, and then there are a lot of avenues around it. There are a lot of, ambassador programs from you, and there are a lot of programs which kind of helps you kind of join these efforts and make your, voice and your opinion to be heard. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's just like I said, seek things that you want to seek, and they will kind of come seeking for you.
Mm-hmm. That's really wonderful, ma'am. That's, I mean, really sums up the whole purpose of why we have to pursue for a sustainable living and fight climate change, right? Thank you so much for your time,
Yeah.
and thank you so much for sharing your insight. And thank you so much for starting a company that strive for a sustainable living, that strive for a sustainable generation, especially for the young people like me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, thank you.